Okay, we are apparently live on Zoom, and I'm waiting for Facebook to. Oh, there we go. We are live for our Saturday salutations.
Are
This
we
is
are we live?
we are. You're the third person, so Zoom knows we're on, and then Facebook knows, and then Kevin knows. So
Oh, there it is. I'm like, I'm gonna, because I have to share this thing, and it's like,
so everyone that's listening on our podcast that gets this recording always hears us at the beginning, trying to figure out if we're live. Are we
it's
live
it's
yet?
not exactly what you would say the most. You would think that they're like Zoom has that little waiting area thing, when you're
Yes.
doing it, and this doesn't. So you just sort of right here guessing and have to assume. Uh, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, it just, just take a deep breath and pause, and then everyone will be good. But for those listening, I'm Melissa Katie, the challenge doctor, with my awesome, stupendous, that's the favorite word of Kevin, so I have to use it too. Um, Fabulous, keeps me on track, reels me back in whenever I go off on tangents. Co-host, Kevin Cuccaro. We're here with the Change Physician. If you're hearing me on the Challenge Doctor page, that is because it's cross-posted over from the Change Physician, which we have our Facebook page, Instagram. Also, of course, if you want to learn more about our community, you can go to thechangephysician.com and join us, whether you're a physician or a physician ally. And you can join us there to keep up with all the things that we're trying to do to bring you skills, strategies, and mindsets for a life that's more fulfilling, whether personally or professionally or both, or really it's just life in general. So thank you for joining us today. And Kevin, are you all queued up in all your parts of social
I'm
media?
cued. I'm cued.
All right,
Send it to
awesome.
the friends and family. Hi, mom. See if you're out there.
Well, of course, you want to tell us, remind us what Saturday Salutations is all about?
Yeah, so Saturday Salutations, sort of a greeting as well as a chance to connect and to share our favorite things. It is the most recent. I guess we'll work through the rest of the days of the week at some point because we've done Monday motivations, we've done Friday faves, Saturday salutations, uh, but we just started this one and it sounds good, and I like the alliteration with it. But it's nice. It's just it's a chance to focus on things that are important. And a chance to say hi and to do some connecting in there. So if you happen to be on Facebook right now, and hopefully you're not because it's a beautiful Saturday, at least here, hopefully you're off doing something and you'll only listen to this later. But if you are, say hi. You can post it in the little thing, tap the little button if you can see it, and let us know. And maybe we'll actually be able to see it, since we're not the most tech wondrous people as it goes. But
Of
anyway,
course.
that's sort of the standpoint on that, as well as to give a little bit of background about the episodes that have recently published and the ones that are upcoming and soon. So you want me to go into those, or would you like to dive
Um,
into where the Change Physician has been heading?
well, I will say what's happened, and you could say what's coming. How
All
about
right.
that?
All
Let's
right.
just change it up a little bit. Well, let's see. We are currently, in the last day of July of 2021. I had to think about that. For some reason I get stuck in the 2020 thing. Um, so it looks like from this past Sunday, we had a two-part series this past week, and it was about what are your fears about retirement. The first part being more of a financial focus. And then, of course, you realize in that conversation, there's so many other fears that are not just money related, but actually these non-money kind of fears and concerns, or things that maybe people don't think about until it just kind of hits them in the face once they finally hit retirement. So hopefully just these conversations can um, prime us to consider the decisions we're making, the choices we're making earlier on that will have an impact on us later. So I won't dive into too many details on that, but I think a lot of our concerns or fears are very relevant for a lot of people out there. And there are some there's a general consensus about certain things we should consider. So that was the past week. And go ahead with our next week, unless you had something to comment on there.
No, I mean,
Pretty straightforward.
pretty straightforward, and as you know, we target specifically physicians, but there are some common fears, and that definitely went into a bunch of different ones there. That leads into then the ones that are going to be dropping this week, including the one tomorrow, which is why nervous is normal. And that one I think is, I don't want people to take that one the wrong way, but what it is basically the difference is pathologizing kind of symptoms And we've done an episode on investing versus paying attention, and is really understanding that when it comes to the brain, and there's things like anxiety or depression or nervousness and these things, those are just kind of a spectrum of what your brain is supposed to do. So we talk a lot about that on why understanding if you are nervous in a new situation and there's uncertainty, that is completely normal. That in and of itself doesn't mean that you have a diagnosis of anxiety disorder or anything like that. And the fact that if we recognize and appreciate that our brains and moods are going to swing back and forth, and that ebb and flow of emotions is normal, really, really critical, rather than getting nervous and then start feeding it into more and more, and then actually creating and engaging into a more of a kind of a pathologic mindset pattern around where you start fearing that thing. And then right after Why Nervous is the Normal, we have a super awesome episode, which I am really excited when that one comes out. And that has to do with this theme of retirement, and it probably has to do, a lot of these topics come out of our discussions and things, and being certain ages and kind of looking where things are and start planning, you get closer rather than when you were in your 20s. And there's this idea of what's called FIRE, financially independent, retire early. In the physician community, that's huge, and huge entire Facebook groups that are devoted to it, mainly because people, rather than trying to design their life now, say, oh, I hate this, I'm just going to work myself to death so that I can retire early and then do the things I want to do. Well, the episode that we have coming up, which will be dropping on August 5th, we have people that actually did what we would call FIRE, financially independent, retire early. They did it when they were 38, which is not uncommon now, because you're seeing all these little websites and people popping in saying, oh, I just retired and blah, blah, blah. But Bill and Acacia Caterly did this in 1991. So not only did they do it when they were 38 years old, they've been doing this for over 3 decades. So talk about an experience. Talk about it's an endpoint of one, so it's a single kind of case series, but there's a lot of data there. They have a lot of experience. They have gone in the up and downs of the market, and so I'm super, super excited because that's an awesome episode. These are people who not only talked about it, they've done it. They have lots of history, rather than someone who says, oh, I've just retired this year and I'm predicting that this is going to work out for me. So awesome episode. As you can tell, I'm really excited about that one, and it was an awesome discussion.
Well, kudos to you. You helped pull him in to be part of the Change Physician podcast. So I was very very pleased with the conversation. It was a lot of fun, some good laughs, and very inspiring. And it's it. I'll just put it this way: for those that want to know the key, there's a lot of components, but coming from his mouth himself, if you're young and hearing us talk right now and you don't think this has anything to do with you, you're missing out on the power of compounding interest that is to your in your favor. Where if you really think about it, you're making in a lot of stuff in those funds or investments when you can make compounded interest, that you don't have to trade your time for money when the interest is compounding. Like, you just realize how much people slave away at working, that they just trade a lot of time for money that they could let the money work for them. And so it's even more critical for younger people to hear this stuff, because you can be ahead of the curve. You could be another Acacia and Billy, or Acacia or Billy, or if you're a couple or a single, whatever. But very powerful, and really encourage you to listen to that episode. Of course, we'd love your feedback on these types of interviews too. Go ahead, Kevin.
Yeah, and I wanted to add on to that, because one of the dangers when you're younger is we hear it and we ignore it, or it doesn't become particularly relevant. There's reasons why, and we don't have the time and the depth of experience. And I've talked about, I can't remember if I've talked about it either on a Saturday Salutations, or if I ever talked about that episode. My trainer when I worked at the bank, Brad, who introduced this concept to me when I was literally like 21. And I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds good. But I didn't start it for 8 years, which was dumb Kevin, dumb young Kevin. Yeah. But with Bill and Acacia, what was really kind of cool is, so they did this at 38, but they started making the plan. I would say probably the major sort of major component was about 5 years. And then they decided to make this change, and they took 2 years where they were very, very diligent about tracking and making this process. And some people may be sitting there going, oh, 2 years, 2 years in the swing of things, not so much. Like that's a pretty quick breath of time and life. And yeah, it's awesome. And as I said, what I particularly loved is the fact that they're not talking about it. They're not they're talking about it, but they're not theorizing about it. They've actually done it. They have the lived experience that is associated with it. And I honestly don't really know anybody personally who's done what they've done and has 30 years of experience behind it and not crazy. Like, that's the other thing. This is not people who had super, super high paying jobs that had, $2 million when they were 38 and doing it. No. This is not like that at all.
Yeah. They
Super,
owned a
super
restaurant
cool.
together.
Owned a restaurant, did some other things, and
Yeah.
it's super cool, super exciting, and really nice people. I mean, that was the other thing. They're just super, super nice. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
hopefully you'll like it as much as we liked recording it.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely coming out this next week, so you got to hop onto that. And of course, with these, with us sharing these episodes, we always jump into our favorite things, or maybe cool things that have happened in the past week. So, what was your favorite thing?
I want you to start that off.
You want time to think?
Well, as I was, when we were prepping for this, and I'm like, as soon as I was logging in, I'm like, oh, this is, I want to make sure I remember this. I want to make sure I remember this. This is super, super cool. This was such a neat thing. And then I totally blanked, and it still hasn't come back. I was hoping that it would return, but I don't know where it went.
That's
Somewhere here.
okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I will say that I'm very grateful for I know it sounds so silly, but people that can do things well, that even though you have to pay them, do things well for you and do a nice job. I'm very grateful for encountering a good contractor to do a little sidewalk for me. Just the pain of like organizing yourself, doing the labor yourself, and or as some people that I know have paid 50% upfront and never had work done. There's all kinds of horror stories, including the contractor that I'm using for this sidewalk. He got what's the was it hoodwinked? What's the word?
It sounds good. Like,
Yeah,
okay.
by another contractor. So he wanted some work to be done for him, and they didn't show up. So I'm just grateful for people that have integrity, that communicate, who do quality work, and we
And
need more of
specifically your
that.
current contractor who's doing all
It's,
that.
exactly.
Yeah.
They showed up, they communicated, and talk about plans. It's like it's not one of these like, silent, not talking about kind of my expectations, or and making suggestions that are probably in my best benefit without really tagging on a big tag to it. It just, yeah, I'm grateful for contractors with integrity. We need
And
more.
that's an important point, because we had a little discussion about this before we got on. You were talking about, and you showed me pictures of your backyard and what's been happening. It's really
Yeah.
cool. And that reminded me, and I was telling you about Wayne Walton, who was our landscaper when we lived in San Diego, and we ridded our backyard back then. And it is something refreshing. You would think that and this kind of upsets me, because it shouldn't be so refreshing when you have people that you're working with that are honest, that are truthful to you, that are fair-minded in the business that they're doing, that aren't simply trying to do everything they can do to extract every dollar out of you, but instead are working with you to provide a fantastic service. And it's just interesting, because there's I guess certain fields maybe get reputations, but contracting is tough. Like,
Mm-hmm.
to find good people who do good quality work, like what you're explaining right now. I mean, you didn't find this was word of mouth, basically, is how you stumbled into it. And like when mine in San Diego with Wayne Walton was kind of word of mouth from somebody. Man, it's so frustrating It's so
Yeah.
frustrating to me. But I guess it's sort of like medicine too, right?
Yeah.
There's
Oh yeah.
there's good doctors and there's doctors that you wouldn't want to ever treat you. And and there's good doctors. There's doctors. I will just tell you out there. Here's the scary thing. There's doctors out there that have these 5-star ratings and blah 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 that I would not let them touch or take care of my worst enemy.
Yep.
Um,
Agreed.
yeah, it's unbelievable, unbelievable.
Yeah. Yeah. You talk about tangibles and intangibles. It's those intangibles that are not, that's the irony of human. Oh, we could go on so many topics on this, but as humans, we try to make sense of the world, as we talked about. Your brain's taking in all this information and trying to figure out if you're safe, if this is a good person, and you have your biases and your stereotypes, and you're judging people from how they look. And as anyone knows, there could be a serial killer next door, and they could be the nicest guy in the world with a nice family, and you would never think anything of it. Like there's this process of discovery that you have to do in order to really figure out if what they're portraying is accurate. And these Google, or these 5-star reviews or whatever, from someone I don't know, is you're trusting a source, and so the source is what you need to be worried about. And ironically, I got multiple quotes, like I told you earlier, and they seemed a little too high, and they weren't really good at communicating like considerations and the depth of the work they're doing. It was just kind of like real superficial, and like, this is the amount, versus like, giving a little bit of value, even if it's 5 minutes of your time, giving some value and maybe help guide the process, especially if you understand it better than the person that's purchasing those things from, I think goes a long way. But even more importantly, this word of mouth. I was just going to decide to do it myself and went to go inspect the rocks, look at the cost of the rocks, so you have your due diligence and understand what the cost of the supplies are. And turns out that the person there pointed out, oh, this person does that kind of work all the time. And I didn't even ask for a referral or anything. And so I started talking to him. He was willing to come out, and he's like, well, I won't be able to do it for a while because I'm busy right now. And to me, I'm like, ding ding, that might actually be a good thing. But the word of mouth for someone who sells supplies, unless he's stockpiling all the supplies at home, he's probably doing the work. So for me, that was a little bit of reassurance that this person is probably showing up to the job site at least, and not just ghosting with half your money to pay for supplies. So anyway, I think word of mouth can be reliable in certain things, not necessarily medical, because some people don't understand the medical stuff. It's a little bit more complicated, but
Yeah, and that's there's actually like a phrase for that. It's not knowledge gap or whatever, but there are certain fields where the ability to make an informed decision is fundamentally impossible because there's a knowledge discrepancy. And unfortunately, medicine is one of those. And I think that actually comes up to a lot of these things, maybe not with as catastrophic implications as medicine does. But these situations where if you don't have knowledge of general contracting or whatever, that's an uncomfortable space, and you really need an expert guide. And unfortunately, it's also an easy place for you to get taken advantage of.
yeah.
I often will compare medicine to auto mechanics, because unless you know anything about cars, it's the same thing. You walk in, you're trusting someone to give you
Right.
some advice on your cars. They could be nice, and like I use this, I hope she's not listening to this. My aunt had this guy who was a mechanic. Oh, he was the best mechanic in the world, except for the fact that cars were I mean, if you know your mechanic by name, there's probably a problem. Like, unless you have a classic car. And this guy, like, so we started taking a car there, and I swear to God, the car was breaking down every like 3 weeks, every month or whatever. Oh, it was so great. Yeah. Anyway, long story short, it was, we ended up selling that car cheap, and the guy who bought it started taking apart the hoses and found one teeny little thing in there. We'd replaced almost every piece in this engine, fixed that, and the car ran perfect. So, yeah, anyway, that discrepancy there is something to be concerned about. And I be cognizant of the reviews, but recognize the reviews in vast majority of situations, when it's something that you don't know and understand, probably talks more about customer service and how it makes you feel,
Yes.
rather than actually the product that's produced.
Yes. My own family has done that too. They think someone's a great physician based on compatibility of personalities and or how they sell it. And I can tell you for a fact that there are some physicians that will sell physicians, surgeons, same thing, especially surgeons because they're doing some procedure that gets scheduled or whatever. If unfortunately, some surgeons are really good at selling, and on the front end, there's a motivation there. But we see the back end. We see how they treat people and um, their capacity to care even after the surgery is done, and the whole just ownership of the whole experience. Um, that we've talked about this before. I mean, if you're bleeding out and they're got the worst bedside manner and they know how to like save your life, just let them do it. But if you're going to have a continuity of care and plastic surgery or some kind of orthopedic stuff that's like you might have issues afterwards, whatever, you might want to be thoughtful on spending a little more time doing your due diligence. But I think it's really hard.
It is very hard. And I guess one thing for a layperson I would say is, particularly if you're your primary doc, if they're only telling things that make you feel good, they're not doing their job. You should not be happy every time you talk to your doctor. It's super easy to do, just tell you what you want to hear. And I'm doing a lot of like chart reviews recently, and I am astounded at what I see. Like I actually had to look somebody up the other day, and of course there was all these reviews. Oh, they listen so well. I'm like, this person's freaking incompetent. I'm like, I can't believe what this person's doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and because that's anecdote, there are studies that actually have documented when you look at patient outcomes and satisfaction scores, the greater degree of patient satisfaction scores are associated with worse outcomes. What does that mean? Well, people are being told things, and there are some hard decisions to be made. And if you just get whatever it is that you want, and you walk in the door and you always want your antibiotics, or you always want a surgery, you always want this stuff, whether it's appropriate or not, you're going to have complications. And so there's an associated mortality risk with being too satisfied by your physician. So don't want an asshole. I mean, you don't want an ass. Sorry.
We'll get a bad rating on that one.
Apparently we already got an explicit rating on iTunes, but I'm like,
it's
I don't
okay.
think we ever cussed. But oops. Yeah. Anyway, so
that was
it just really irritates me. People, you don't want a jerk, and you want someone who's respectful, but you don't want someone who's going to tell you what you want to hear every time you walk in there. You want someone who's going to tell you the hard things and is going to say, hey, that may not be the best choice for you. And if not, you've got a sycophant. You don't have a physician.
Well, that could tie into so many things there. But I would say I have learned one reason to try not to be a physician for your family is that they don't like you all the time because you tell things they don't want to hear. Oh, anyway, I need
they just
symbol
don't.
I need to hit.
The familiarity breeds contempt, right? They're like they always see you as little Melissa, little Missy Melissa, right? They don't know that they're Dr. Melissa. They just, whatever she's saying this. Yeah.
It's so true that just unless they come to you and ask, even though that's still hard to hear the things they don't want to hear, it's really hard to make progress or to just, I mean, as a physician, yes, you're going to be telling people things they don't want to hear, but I guess the challenge is to try to be how to be persuasive, or what is it, pre-persuasion?
Persuasion.
Yeah, where you can learn how to help build people up to get to those lifestyle things that are impacting the things that are going on that shouldn't probably be going on. You're telling them things they don't want to hear, but it's probably directly related to their lifestyle. And so you got to have a way to help give them the opportunity to be ready to be the student or to grow and change those lifestyle things. So it's challenging.
It is. And I think if you are a good person, good physician, good someone who is providing a service to another human, then it really behooves you to learn persuasion, basically, in the sales and marketing, because I can guarantee you there are competitors out there who are horrible, awful people that are using those same tools, because that's all they are, is the tools, and and pulling them in. So, that was, yeah, it's a big,
Propaganda out
and
there
it's,
too does it too.
oh, and the propaganda. Yeah. Anyway, it's tough because I don't know, selling can be uncomfortable, or you can feel like, oh, I'm trying to do, but persuasion is really, really important as for whatever you do. And we all do it. If you're doing things for the right reasons, it better have the best skills in order to help those changes occur. And hopefully you're getting them through the change physician.
That's right. That's right. Well, Mr. Change Physician.
Doctor change physician to you.
I'm Miss Change Physician. I'm married,
Doctor.
but I'm not married to you, so I don't know.
I still think you're Doctor Change Physician. I'm Doctor Change Physician.
Okay.
I didn't go to 4 years of evil change medical school to be called Mr. Thank You. In case you don't get the old Austin Powers reference with that. But
I actually captured it. I just probably was going to blank out on the name of the movie because I'm not always the best at that, but I'm glad you had it. But what's your favorite thing for the past week?
And now you just blew it all out of the water because we've been all over you got me all wired up and I guess the biggest thing has been dinners. Like, we have recently instituted this Sunday dinner thing. Sounds crazy, right? Because people have been doing Sunday dinners forever. And a couple of weeks ago, we were like, hey, we should, my son's leaving for college soon. And we were like, well, he's going to be local, which is awesome. And we're like, well, how do you make this fun? And so what we decided we would do, and we're continuing it now, is just have Sunday dinners. And so the expectations, will have a Sunday dinner and we have these, it's just fun. And then our hope is then this will carry through, maybe they get tired of college food or whatever, and he can bring his friends over, but we will have these Sunday dinners. So it's just been nice. Little kind of forget sometimes, but having dinner, I really love my family. They're so much fun. The kids seem to enjoy it because they don't run away. They're there, and actually my son came home last week and I'm like, what are you doing home? He's like, oh, it's a Sunday dinner. I'm like, oh, wow.
Traditions. Here we go.
It's only been a couple of weeks, but yeah, they apparently like it too. So that is definitely one of my favorite things. It's probably the better than the one that I forgot, because that involves everybody and it involves the house, and it's really kind of special.
Traditions that include connections. That is a perfect thing to end it on. So why don't you take us out?
All right. Well, everybody, thanks for joining us on Saturday Salutations with the Change Physician. If you are interested in joining the community, whether you're a physician or physician ally, you can go to thechangephysician.com. Again, we have some awesome episodes coming up in the next week. Make sure you have either subscribed to your favorite podcast network, or you can watch us on YouTube at the Change Physician, our YouTube station there, where you can actually see our guests and see us and see my background change with my books that nobody's commenting on.
And my same one.
And your same one, but it's yours is fancier than mine.
Yeah.
But anyway, we enjoy you guys. Hope you're having a fantastic week. Have a great next week. Invest your attention in all the positive things that really make a difference so that you can change the world. And until next time, stay well.
Take care.